As we continue our study from the Hebrew text of the book of Job, we are now at chapter 6, and from chapter 6, 1 to 721, Job will make his reply to Eliphaz. So after the first speech of Eliphaz, which we have looked at in chapter 5, we now see how Job answers with his first reply. He gives a defense, first of all, of his impatience. This is in chapter 6, 1 to 13. He expresses disappointment over his friends, chapter 6, 14 to 23. And finally, he bitterly renews his complaint against God, who he feels has assailed him. So we begin in verses 1 to 13. Job admits that he has complained, but reasons that his severe agony has occasioned his complaining. Who wouldn't complain? Asked Job. He then cries out to God to crush him and bring an end to his suffering. We're going to focus on the first 7 verses, and then we'll go on after that with another video. It just takes a lot of time, and to have the videos longer than maybe 20 minutes, if I can hold it to that, I think is important. We're going to be looking at the reading of the text, followed by grammar, and then exposition. So it begins in verse 1. Vaya'an Iyov vayomer. And Job answered and said. Vaya'an is from anan, to say or to answer. We have a cow imperfect, third masculine singular, from that root with a vav consecutive. So Job answered Vayomer, and he said, another cow imperfect, third masculine singular from Amar, a pay aleph verb, and that's why we have the holem following the yod prefix of the third masculine singular. The vav, again, turns it over. It's a vav hafek, or a vav consecutive. Lu shakol yeshekel kashi, or kasi. V'hayati b'moz senayim yesu'u yachad. Lu, oh, or if only my vexation were weighed, and my calamity or my destruction in the balances lifted up together. Notice here, shakol is your cow infinitive, basically with yishakel, cow infinitive absolute. Actually, it is acting as an adverb here. And so, oh, that my vexations would be weighed. Yishakel is from shakal, to weigh. It's a nifal imperfect, third masculine singular from shakal. Notice the noon of the nifal stem has assimilated already into the sheen, causing the dogish, the doubling of the sheen by progressive assimilation. So yin shakel became yishakel. Oh, that my vexation were weighed, and my destruction, bahayati. Bahayati would be from hava, meaning destruction. And then we have the noun with the pronominal suffix in the hirik yod. And my destruction in the balances were weighed together or lifted up together. Moznaim is a noun meaning balances, looking at the scales where you'd have one and then another side, and you would balance it in weighing. And so my destruction, would it be that my calamity, I should say, or my destruction were lifted up in the balances? Ba here is the inseparable preposition, and then we have a dual ending in ayim. Yis'u is from the root nasa. It is the cow imperfect third person plural from nasa. And again, the noon has elided or dropped out here. So, and in the balances were laid. So what he's really saying here is simply he wishes that his vexation and calamity could be weighed. For if that were possible, they would weigh heavier than the sand of the sea. It is for this reason that he has spoken so rashly, as his friends have alleged. And we're going to see the reference to the sand of the sea then in the next verse. Notice it reads, Ki ata mechol yamim yikbad. For now it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Notice we have this comparative use of the preposition min here, which has changed as where the noon has elided, and we have compensatory lengthening under the mem from a hirik to a tzeri. More than, for now it would be heavier, more than the sand of the seas. Hul is in construct with yamim, sand of seas, and yikbad is the cow imperfect third masculine singular from kabad. So would that could be that you would find out that my trials are heavier than the sand of the sea. You can imagine how heavy the sand of the sea would be. And then he continues, Al kain devarai lau. Wherefore, or therefore, my words are broken. Now the word lau is from lua, and it means probably to talk wildly in the context here. It's a middle weak verb, and it is the cow perfect third common plural from lua. So wherefore my words are broken. And again, I'm talking wildly or irrationally, and that's why he is pleading. The reason is that the arrows of the Almighty are within me. So verse 4, Ki chitzei Shaddai imadi, asher chamatam shota ruchi, be'utei Eloah ya'archuni. That is, for the arrows of the Almighty are within me. Notice as we look at this, he's giving the reason why his words are being spoken in sort of a wild way. For the arrows of the Almighty. Here, chitzei is a masculine plural noun in construct with Shaddai, which means Almighty. So the heirs of the Almighty are within me, imadi, imad, the preposition followed by the hirik yod, the pronominal suffix, first person singular, asher hamatam shota ruchi, which their poison my spirit is drinking. Asher is the relative pronoun which. Hamatam is from Hama, meaning their poison. Is the pronominal suffix, third masculine plural. So who's their arrows? My spirit is drinking. Shota is from shata, to drink. Here we have a cow participle, feminine singular, from shata. So my spirit is drinking, and ruchi is my spirit. Ruach is spirit, and e is your pronominal suffix, first person singular. So my spirit is drinking their arrows, as it were, that God has shot into me. I'm reminded in Homer of the arrows that the god shot into the camp. And so it's sort of interesting, same kind of imagery that is used here. Be'ute Eloah ya'archuni. The tares of God are arraigned or are set in order against me, are set, can I say, arrayed or set against me. Here we have be'ute, a noun plural in construct with Eloah. So the tares of God, ya'archuni, is from arak. It means to set in order. And so the tares of God are set in order. And here we have a cow imperfect, third person plural, masculine plural, followed by the pronominal suffix in the ni here, the first person singular pronominal suffix. So the arrows of God, or the tares of God, are arrayed against me, are set in order against me. When we look at this verse, verse 4, from an expositional point of view, the poetic imagery represents God as an archer, armed with bow and arrow. We find other references in the Hebrew scriptures of God as an archer. In Deuteronomy 32:23, in Ezekiel 5:16, in Psalm 7:13, we see God as an archer in that imagery. And this is the imagery that is used by the author of Job. So he has shot Job with a poisoned arrow. And again, this kind of language we find in Psalm 38, 2-3. This graphic picture is particularly appropriate in Job's case, as the burning pains which afflict him are so severe and deep within him that they seem like poison. This is what he is describing. And then it says that the tares of God are arrayed against me. And we looked at that verbal form. Arrayed, here the imagery changes. This is that of a military type of imagery. God stands as a warrior before Job, unleashing all his fury against him. This is the idea that Job is saying. This similar language is found in Isaiah 42, verse 13. So then we move on to verse 5. It reads, Hayinhak pera ale desha, im yegeh shur al belilo. Does, and here we have the hey interrogative, does the wild ass bray upon grass, or by grass when he has grass? Yinhag is the cow imperfect, third masculine singular, from the root nahak, to cry out. And so does the wild ass, pera means wild ass, cry out by preposition beside desha, grass? Uh, no, the thought is no, he does not. And so he continues, or im here simply is rendered or, I believe, yegeh shur al belilo, or uh, does the ox low over his fodder? Again, yegah is from the verb ga'ah, to low, or like moo. Does he low? Does the ox low over his fodder? Notice al is your preposition, and then the word for fodder. Uh, and so followed by the pronominal suffix in the o. So does the ox uh, low over his fodder? And the thought, of course, would be no, he is not making a sound. He's enjoying the fodder. So neither the wild nor the tame animals, he's giving two illustrations here, are dissatisfied when they have enough food to eat, but they bray or low when they are hungry, or the food they have is unpalatable. So Job argues that he has reason to complain. God has given him unpalatable food in the form of his sufferings, of his misfortune. This is what the text is saying, and Job is continuing in his answer to Eliphaz. So then in verse 6, as we continue, Haye achel tafel mibli melach. Can that which is not, can that be eaten, which is tasteless, without salt? Or im yesh ta'am berir halamut, or is there taste in the juice of halamut? Halamut would be something like a plant. Porcelain, some take it to be like a thick, a plant that has thick, slimy juice that it produces. At least that's what many commentators understand it to mean. So here we have the hey interrogative. Can the unseasoned tafel would be tasteless, like tasteless food or unseasoned food? Can that which is tasteless without salt be eaten? Notice here, ye achal is from achal, to eat. It is the nifal imperfect, third masculine singular from achal. So can that which is tasteless or unseasoned be eaten, mibli, from without food or without food? Here, this compound preposition, I'm just going to render it without salt, not food, without salt. Melach means salt. So you need salt if you're tasting food that is unseasoned or tasteless. I occasionally enjoy, my wife and I, cooking Indian food. And it's interesting, we have friends that have helped us learn to cook the Indian food, and they will often say, Gary, you can't eat the food without a little salt. I'm on a regular, a very limited salt diet, and so my friends will say, "Hey, you need to put a little salt. Put a little salt on it. It'll bring out the flavor." And how true that is. I mean, you can fix curry, but without salt, it doesn't have the taste. The salt brings it up. So this is what he's saying: the need of salt. Im yesh ta'am, that is, or is there taste? Barir, barir would be taste in the juice of halamut. Halamut is a word that probably means a plant, as we said, in which you have slimy juice and you need, again, salt. Otherwise, it would be tasteless. So, what we have here is, in a way of exposition, salt takes away the unpalatable taste of insipid food. Without salt, however, unpalatable food cannot really be enjoyed. So Job has had to take that which is unpalatable, that is his calamities, without anything to cushion the experiences, like salt, without anything to cushion it. And that's why it's only natural, he is saying, that he is responding in this way. And then we go to verse 7. Me ana lingoa nafshi. My soul refuses to touch them, understood. Hema kidve lachmi. They are as illness or sickness of my flesh, lachmi. Notice here, as we look at this, we could have the word lachmi, like appetite. Lechem is the word for bread. So they are a sickness of my appetite. Notice me anan is a PL perfect, third feminine singular from ma'an, to touch. So my soul, nafshi, nefesh, is with the pronominal suffix in the e here, the hirik yod, and it's a feminine noun with used in me anan, the verb. So my soul refuses lingoa, to touch, from naga, to touch. It's the cow infinitive construct from naga. So my soul refuses to touch them, understood, I believe. They are hema. Here we have the pronoun. They are as, in the inseparable preposition ke. They are as sickness, kidve, a sickness of my flesh, or lachmi. And I think we could render this sickness of my appetite here. So as we look at this, the natural reaction then, as we've seen, is to turn away from tasteless food. Job declares that accepting these disasters is like having to eat bad, insipid food. And for a parallel of this, in the book of Psalms, see further Psalm 42, verse 3, Psalm 80, verse 5, and Psalm 102, verse 9. With this view, it is no wonder he is saying that he has a right to complain. This is just too much. And lachmi here, I've looked at that word, could be rendered something, could be rendered flesh. So they are, my soul refuses to touch them. They are as sickness of my flesh. And I had said appetite. Actually, we should probably translate this as they are as sickness of my flesh, since this is what Job is actually going through at this time. Um, so again, let me stop there. I'm just going to keep working through, looking at each word in the text. And so, just to summarize, a brief summary exposition, Job is defending why he is complaining. He's justifying his complaints. And that is that what he has to bear is heavier than the sand of the sea, and God has shot him through with poisoned arrows. And there's no wonder I'm talking this way, this irrational way, he's saying. And when you look at a wild ass and you look at an ox, they're not going to cry out if they have their needs met, even the wild and the non-wild. And furthermore, if you try to eat food with no salt, it doesn't help. And it's without flavor. And that's what's happening to me, to my soul. And so my soul then is experiencing this kind of struggle. And so for Eliphaz to attack him in this way, Job is saying, it's unfair. It's not what I deserve. This is something that I'm experiencing that I don't understand. And I have a right to ask and to cry out as I'm doing. So that's Job's defense as the author is beginning to develop it.